Welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, where last time we finished our setup at last for the Reverse Raj maneuver. The world is split between the two superpowers, the Reverse Raj Union and the Allies, with a few fascists sprinkled in for good measure. And it's time for us to attack the United Kingdom. This will mean neglecting most of the other World War fronts that are about to open up, but we're not so interested in those anyway. I just want to attack the United Kingdom, so here we are, sailing out with a bunch of troops to just straight up do it, and we're essentially going to see what happens and react to the global situation as stuff develops. I do have some troops in place around the world to do something, like for example I've set up this invasion of Indochina to go off whenever they join this war, which they probably will, and I've got a few other groups elsewhere. As for the southern UK, I decided to soften them up. We have no intel on what troops they have, but in the past I'd noticed the AI likes to put stacks of troops on top of ports, which could stop us getting a supply line. So we've just blown up the UK, now we'll go and capture that wasteland. There are also a couple of naval invasions coming in on mainland Europe, but more importantly, our naval invasion is getting across the channel with no resistance so far. Here is the point when the diplomacy of this war starts to kick in. The UK is beginning to call in thousands of other factions to join this fight, so things are going to start getting complicated across the world. Looks like a few factions are now willing to join me as well. I feel like I called everybody in to the war with the UK, but maybe I didn't. Some people are offering to join now. That's fine, please help out. A lot of my allies have no troops because they're recently created factions, and they're not really going to help very much, as we'll see going forwards. We've also got these patches of territory around the place that are just going to go down instantly. We can't really defend them. Although here I was like, Venezuela didn't join the war, but Panama did. Maybe I should recommit this army to go up through Central America instead and capture that area. That proves to be a disaster, and the less said about it the better. Essentially that army is going to be walking backwards and forwards in the rainforest for a long time, not doing very much. We'll check in with them later. I've got this tank army that I was going to use to invade Denmark, but they also haven't joined the war yet. So instead, I'm putting them to use, stopping these naval invasions that are springing up in Germany, Norway, and some UK troops are around the place. Not quite sure how they naval invaded so quickly. I guess they already prepared it before the war started, just like I did. We were all planning to kill each other all along. Looks like we're there though. We've got troops on the ground in the UK, the sweet irradiated ground, and there is no resistance, so I believe my wave of nukes was a complete waste. There was nothing in the UK at all. We could have just swept through and taken it, and we'll actually be moving through it slower because the nukes damage infrastructure, so it would have been faster and better in general to not nuke them. Then again, I did waste a bunch of time making a huge pile of nukes. I've got to use them on something. France hasn't joined the war yet, but Luxembourg have, so my anti-France army is currently fighting Luxembourg and losing by the looks of things, because Luxembourg is the strongest faction in the game, as we saw in my previous Hearts of Iron campaign. Overall though, this is looking pretty good. We're starting to grab some ports in the UK, we'll be in supply and ready to go to take the rest. Or will we? Because as I was moving across, I started to notice my supplies are not being replenished. Somebody nuked London. I can't remember, honestly. I don't think that was me. The allies, or my allies I should say, will randomly nuke things in the background just for their own amusement, and they do like to take down enemy capitals. Anyway, the point is the supply situation is actually not very good. We have no supply line going to the UK. We've got one going to Belgium, so clearly the naval routes allowing supply are open. I spent a while trying to work out what's going on, and eventually the thought crossed my mind that maybe this is something to do with the fact we've nuked everything. Turns out it's difficult to supply stuff to a nuclear wasteland. What I ended up doing is prioritizing the repair of all of the stuff that got destroyed in my nuclear attacks. You can see here, everything's totally wrecked. It actually wrecked things even more than I expected. I feel like when you nuke somewhere, the roads would somewhat exist, but they've just been completely torn up. We nuked them real hard. There's just nothing here anymore. So as we take the new, completely devoid of life southern England, we need to prioritize putting the roads back in and putting the ports back in. This is really annoying because they're here, the repair jobs, in our list of things to do, which is extremely long. both because I've got these massive construction queues just going in the background so I don't have to pay attention, and because loads of other stuff needs repairing because our global empire is in a constant state of rebellion. Rebels are blowing up stuff all over the place and I'm just completely ignoring it. So now we painstakingly prioritize things in this area instead by dragging them up this list. We just need a do this right now button really, rather than a priority list here. So you can emergency do something very important. It does work though. After all of the effort of setting this up, the repairs go through real fast because we have tons of civilian factories. And then we are in supply, the supply lines are set up, and we're back in business. So the lesson there is that nuking people maybe is a bad idea. I don't think that's the intended lesson of this game based on my previous playthroughs. We'll be nuking some more people, I expect. But as we rebuild the UK in our own fashion, we'll now be able to fight much more effectively. And as you can see, the UK is not able to offer that much resistance. We've got the odd division to kill, but for the most part, we're just going to be claiming the territory here. Through a heroic struggle, no doubt, we were eventually able to bring down Luxembourg. So that's one allied nation capitulated. Looks like they're already, though, being taken over by the Belgians, and now some confusion will begin. We're fighting somebody we can't see there, which is not particularly helpful. We're kind of in this quasi-state of war with Belgium that I don't quite understand. So we can see a few of their divisions and they are hostile to us. However, I also have military access in their territory at the same time. So now we're in this very awkward position. I'm trying to move through their territory to the coast and we're fighting them along the way. But because we're not fully at war or something, I can't see the front line, I can't occupy territory, and some mysterious ghostly battles are just going on. It's probably fine. Meanwhile, our expansion over the UK continues as per the plan. That's all good. We successfully crusade across Belgium, defeating a whole bunch of their divisions but not changing our frontline positions. Maybe they're an expeditionary force in somebody else's war with us or something, and that's why it's not taking their territory or doing the usual stuff. In conclusion, I don't know. But we're going to try and establish some kind of front line along the Belgium front. To do this now, I need to break through that front line from the back and then set up to turn around and advance back the other way if the game lets me. A very confusing situation, but it's to our advantage because we are absolutely annihilating the Belgian military from our interior positions. That's probably better than just having a standoff and charging from the front. I'm moving more troops to help out here in the UK so we can spread out and take more territory. There was a message informing me that France has now joined the war. I was expecting that, but this is going to be a challenging moment as we have to deal with a relatively large empire right on our front lines. I was also immediately checking the Indochina situation. They're a vassal of France or something, so I figured they would join soon. What I'm going to do now is push through Belgium because with the joining of France, Belgium joins the war properly as well, and you can see it starts to change up things on the front line as suddenly all the territory we are actually already occupying switches over to us. The front line gets very messy. We can clear that up a bit and just have a overwhelming advantage over Belgium from the start. In England, well, we're advancing out of England and into Wales. I've got some offensive plans set up, but I don't appear to be using them. Looks like I'm content to micro everything all over the place. Maybe I'm planning on advancing automatically. The enemy are weak enough here that we don't really need to be microing this front. Just running at them will be enough. And Indochina does join the war. It's not quite India, it's not quite China, and now it's going to be ours, and maybe we can rename it something else along the way. I'm also at war with the Yunnan clique in this area, and I've actually lost tons of territory to them to the northeast of the screen there. So at some point we need to push up as well. There's me trying to express that through the offensive plan. I want to push in basically every direction. Well, it doesn't quite work out, but Indochina at least will be an easy target to bring down with the forces I have over there. Belgium is pretty much dead. Somebody nuked their capital. Again, I really can't remember if it was me, but I feel like maybe it was. Maybe that was a throwback to the previous campaigns I've done where I also nuked Belgium and Brussels in particular. Waiting for a war to start with Poland, which feels like it should happen. They are in the Allies. Norway is invading the Soviet Union, or the not Soviet Union anymore. Hopefully they can deal with that, but they have lost most of their troops due to having their faction changed and government changed and all that sort of stuff. The UK still going downtown, and they actually go further downtown than I thought, and by that I mean they capitulated after not having to take as much of the island as I figured we would have to. This could be because I was nuking them, I can't quite remember, but I feel like maybe nuking somebody increases their capitulation score or reduces their war support, I think, which could contribute to that. Something, something, something. Boom, the site we've been waiting to see, the United Kingdom, occupied by the People's Republic of India. Of course, it's not over yet. We need to win the war in order to actually claim the territory and have it be officially ours. And that's really going to be the hard part. Now we just need to win World War III, and that will be that. I remembered from previous campaigns that if you think you've occupied the United Kingdom, you haven't really, because some 20 divisions will just show up from somewhere in Africa and take it back the moment you look away. So because of that, I'm going to leave an army to just hang around and be here, ready for when it gets inevitably naval invaded later on, and some of the troops will go back to the mainland to participate in our new big war with France. That war is actually going surprisingly well right now. You might have noted that France hasn't invaded us. We've only got the Belgian part of the front line garrisoned with troops, and Belgium is being taken out as we speak. They haven't gone through into Germany though, down to the south. I really don't know why, but it's helping us out quite a lot. They're just there on the border, waiting for an offensive plan to finish planning or something. Maybe the AI is up to something, but by not attacking us, they're giving us time to bring more troops back over to this front. And of course we don't need all those planes attacking England anymore, so we can gain air superiority along the front. More troops are on the way, some of them from very far away. We can now drive over land from our deployment zones all the way to the Western Front. A bit of a long trek, but it does mean the Allies can't take our convoys out at sea if we go the probably faster sea route. Not that that happens very often. In my experience, the AI just lets you off if you drive past them with troop convoys. They seem to not bother attacking them. And here we are. We do manage to finish off our front line with the guys left over from the UK invasion. Now we're going to have a standard Western Front battle. It wouldn't be a world war without a grindy fight over somewhere near the French border. France totally missed their opportunity to take me down big time there. We will be keeping Germany for this war, which will probably be helpful. I wanted to push into France with our newly arrived troops, but it's not going to be that easy as it turns out because of the old trick. The Maginot Line is back at it again. Our stats are being shot down to single figures if we attack these positions, even though they're not that strongly garrisoned. We don't have that many troops either in this area since we're spreading out. So it's going to be something of a standoff. I don't really want to attack. The enemy probably could attack us, but they won't think of that. We're going to mostly leave the Western Front alone. It needs to be there to be a world war, as I mentioned, so we're going to have a ceremonial Western Front. I'll mainly be looking at other parts of the world. For example, Indochina, which is going down as fast as we can take it at this stage. They did have some troops, but they mostly fell back to their capital, where I'm currently failing to attack, if you saw that very briefly there, but eventually we'll take all of those guys down. There are some naval invasions going on in Ireland, so they're coming close to invading the UK, need to pay attention to that. And here's an interesting situation. I sent a few tanks to defend against Denmark when they joined the war, but when I got there, there was nobody at the front line, so those tanks can start advancing instead and capturing parts of Denmark. And this pattern will continue on, as we'll see. Here is the fall of Indochina, absolutely spamming our way into Saigon. With that done, we're going to take this army and redeploy it to the north. We've lost all of our Chinese territory to the Yunnan clique. We're going to take it back and get the Yunnan clique out of the war. That war, by the way, isn't part of World War III. It's just Burma's at war with them, so we're supporting Burma in a separate conflict. Back in Denmark, well, you can see how well things went. There was nobody here for all intents and purposes, so we took most of their territory by just driving around in it for a bit. Then I can start pushing through the straits towards Copenhagen, where, again, we don't face much resistance. A few enemy divisions were here, but they were easily defeated, and soon we are driving into their capital. Also, some shenanigans are going on, because we've done the focus that allows you to force a rebellion on Ceylon to create Sri Lanka, and they joined our faction as well, so that's nice of them. Just denying the UK a bit of territory, that will make it slightly harder for them to annoy us later. We can do something similar to Nepal and Bhutan to create a couple more Reverse Raj Union factions. Whether they'll actually help, I don't know, but I decided to do it anyway. I'm trying not to take all of the communist focuses because some of them will probably break the game since I've already taken other ones. Just doing ones that will be mostly inconsequential. And here we are, moving into Denmark's capital. That's going to be the end of them. They capitulate. That war was nothing. They shouldn't have joined in really, because now all they've done is given us some free territory and a route towards Sweden and Norway, who are also in the war against us. That does mean though that we can't not pay attention to the north. We need to attend to that front, and I've got only 4 divisions here, so a few more would be nice. Finland is in the war over there as well, of course. Here's a look at the overall war. Our side is about equal to the enemy in numbers, but we've taken more casualties, but that's because our side includes the fascists. If you look at just the Reverse Raj, we've lost a bit over 100,000 troops, so the fascists must have lost like 6-point-something million troops for our side to technically be getting the worst of this war. Hopefully we can start to change that trend. If the fascists have died to weaken the enemy, that would be perfect. Looks like an intense war must be going on over Canada, the United States having difficulty taking it. I suspect that's where all of the UK's troops actually were, thus massively aiding me in taking the UK itself. Down in South America, we're gradually losing territory. I was setting up to attack Venezuela and the bits of UK territory here. I can't quite remember why, but I ended up giving up on that idea. We could just do it right now. Instead, I thought I'm going to move this army to border Argentina instead, because they're in the Allies but not at war with us. I figured they'll probably invade soon. I'll just abandon the top half of South America. I think it might be because of my flashbacks to previous Hearts of Iron campaigns, where fighting in South America is slow, not very many supplies are available, and it's not all that important due to the lower number of buildings in the area. So abandoning that entire part of the world wouldn't be a bad call, because it would free up 24 divisions that we could use to go and strike somewhere else. If we had an extra 24 divisions, we could probably do something against France, for example. Looks like some peace treaty has gone through, which has broken up Indochina into its constituent countries. Meaning we now have Vietnam on our side in the war. They're also fascists, so this is confusing. They've joined the wrong alliance. We're going to do some political meddling to try and get them to become communists, just so they'll fit in a bit more. Maybe they won't betray us or anything like that. And now we are free to deploy against Yunnan, as mentioned earlier. Back in Scandinavia, I started driving off through Denmark into Sweden. I've only got 4 divisions, so we can't really advance through Sweden. It's too big, too many tiles. But there was nothing here, so I thought, well, I might as well start occupying some of it just to see what will happen. This is handy. I thought maybe it could go the same as Denmark, we'll just somehow capitulate them without having to really fight. But they did have the odd division here and there. My territory is getting very weirdly shaped due to lack of divisions. And this is going to leave me extremely vulnerable to being cut off, like one half-dead division could cut off my tanks out in the middle of nowhere. A bit risky. I wanted to find a few more infantry units to help out, and I've pulled 2 of them off of our western front. I could only really spare 2. I didn't feel comfortable pulling more off, because we're already weaker than the enemy on that front. I soon settled on a more modest occupation. I pulled everything back so it wouldn't get surrounded as more Swedish soldiers showed up. We're going to defend this little corner. It's quite a good corner. It's got a naval base and an air base in it, so a nice frontline position, easily supplied. We've got the naval bases of Denmark to help us out as well. There's even a river defending part of it, so we can stand here for a while and try to get more troops freed up. We need like a full army here to move the army out wide enough to sustain a front line that can move up through Scandinavia. But a good start, getting Denmark out of the way is nice, and now those troops will wait for opportunities. Reinforcements are driving there slowly from India. They'll show up eventually. We've lost millions of islands, by the way. I controlled lots of Micronesian islands. I'm getting constant naval invasion warnings because the Allies are just taking them all. Oh well, not really going to do anything about that, of course. We are going to, though, have another session of microing across southwestern China, just like earlier in this campaign. We're now taking out the Yunnan clique instead of the Guangxi clique, but it's the same territory and it's the same plan, advancing region by region, trying to get the coastal ports, this time using offensive plans as well to have our troops attack automatically where they can, and broadly, it's going okay. Because we haven't been invaded in the UK yet, I'm going to pull a bunch of the divisions there away, because this is an easy way for me to attack Scandinavia. If I wasn't defending the UK, we could easily send this army over and get something going. So we're going to compromise a bit and send part of the army to join our Scandinavian forces, leaving a smaller group in the UK to defend it if something shows up, / when something shows up. This army we have here now is big enough to extend our front line, so I move it off to the east to grab another port as well to help with supplies. While doing that though, you can see somebody invaded Denmark, so we do have to go back and take it down again. This actually goes really well, even sending tanks across the strait, where I presume they have a massive debuff to their stats and stuff. It all goes great, the enemy can't defend against us, and we quickly push them back out and retake Denmark. Then we'll twist back around to defend this front line again, where the enemy are actually successfully pushing there, need to quickly reinforce. Now we have enough divisions in that area to advance the line up a bit and still be strong, but what we can't do is advance up to where like Norway is and the line would get very wide. We'll see what we can do there, and as I'm alluding to, we're going to see that we are going to have to continually fight to defend the UK in the very near future. Overall though, I think this World War III scenario is quite good. The fact that the fascists have killed a bunch of the enemy and generally distracted them seems to have allowed us to avoid taking early losses. I suspected that when we started the war, we'd see collapses in Reverse Raj Union territories all over the place real fast, but it hasn't really happened, and we are perhaps in an advantageous position where we'll have to see as we push whatever advantages we might have into the next part of the Reverse Raj campaign.